Sausage making.
Oh, yeah. Yikes.
There's lots of that going on now.
Yeah. All right. So I'll have to mute this or I'll hear us. Okay, that's muted. All right, Kristen. So that should be up and live on YouTube. I'm looking at it.
Are we waiting for any? I'm not sure.
We can get going because we are, even though Kristen's putting the link up on the website, we are technically streaming it live out on YouTube right now. So anybody who, anyone from the public, it would be a little bit circuitous to get there, but it is being live and it'll be recorded. So all of this from this point forward is ready to go. And I can see I got a high sign from Kristen, so we're rolling.
Okay, so you'd like us to begin?
Yes.
Terrific. I spoke to Jeff a little earlier today. We've been working on a lot of this stuff, but there's still some things that are a little bit of some blank pages, but we've had a chance to address a number of the questions that came from the committee after you reviewed things last time. Try to work on a hybrid scheme and also try to look at a scheme that involved just the building with no additions. But I will apologize up front. Our intent was to try and get things to you ahead of time, a few days ahead of time. And we have just been flat out. So literally working right up till this afternoon to try and get more and more things for you. So it's my fault. My apologies for not having things to you a few days ahead. Our thought is that perhaps we can schedule another meeting in a couple of weeks to go over this and pull more together, answer the final questions and get things out ahead of time then. But it wasn't that we were ignoring the request to get things up front. It's just first trying to get staff efficient, working from home combined with coming in, and also trying to get libraries opened right now. There's a million things that we've been dealing with. From the acrylic dividers that they're putting up that the state education department is saying are not fireproof, to switching all sorts of things and how they're doing. So one of the things we're going to help you with, and in fact Lisa's done some calculations already, are the square footages and therefore the occupancies of each of the spaces you have. And this will be an assistance to you in determining a percentage of the total occupancy of the building that's allowed as established by code, and then you can work your numbers back from that. So we're obviously trying to help you with that as well. What we thought we'd start with today, if you'd indulge us then, is a code calculation. So just as an upfront, I'm going to let Lisa walk us through it, but the code establishes for each individual space in a building the number of occupants per square foot based on different criteria. So in the stacks, you can imagine there's fewer people per square foot, whereas in a large open meeting room, there would be a lot of people per square foot. So as we look at the whole building, we have to divide it into these little subsectors based on the type of occupancy they are. If I can share screen here, let me look for that.
Could be a green button down at the bottom. If you hit that little arrow to the right of that,
it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay. That host.
Is Kristen going to take the hit for this?
Yep.
Okay, we good now?
Probably not. I'm going to take the hit for this. Let me see. Webinars.
Welcome to your first meeting, Charmaine. This is really going smoothly.
I am very tech unsavvy, so I just
okay. It's all good.
I appreciate whatever people are doing.
You should be a panelist, not a participant, so you should be able to screen share.
Every time I hit it, it says disabled attendee screen sharing. We've done this before.
Yeah, we've definitely done this before, and you're set up exactly.
Huh.
Everybody who's here is a panelist, not a attendee. So you should be just like we're doing a webinar. So
The attendee.
Yeah, this says attendee. I don't know.
Participants video. Is there something you can send to me that I can share out? Or is that
Did you send these?
Yeah,
We sent these to you
I sent them
earlier.
directly to you.
okay? Is that the linear foot calculation one or the?
Well, it's called,
Existing conditions code review PDF.
it's the drawing for, I want to go through the drawing first and then the code occupancy calculation goes
Okay.
with it.
So the one I got today is called BPL LF new scheme PDF. That's just a linear foot.
That's shelving.
Okay, that's the one. That's the only one I have from today.
I sent you and Paul the same email and he got his.
Okay.
Yeah, hang on.
Maybe it's over. Give me a second.
Here, let me forward this to you now, Jeff.
Okay. I think that was probably more interesting than the linear foot calculations, which are important, but
Right.
not as visually appealing.
Depends how much of a library geek you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just sent you something, should come through in a second. See if that works for you.
Okay.
And it should have a number of attachments to it.
Yes. So floor plans new.
No, let's start with existing conditions code review PDF.
Existing conditions. Got it. Okay.
It'll be a drawing with red marks on it.
Got it. Yep. Give me a second. Who can share? All panelists.
We just can't point to things then.
You're right.
All right. So now. All right, Paul. Actually, I just hit a setting. Try to share one more time.
Try to share.
Yeah.
Share screen. Oh, yep,
Okay.
it'll let me. Hang on a sec. I have to,
I got a different screen now, so that's good.
Choose which little, a bunch of little windows down below, and you just choose the one you want to look at.
Sure.
yeah, but it's going to tell me to select which one.
We got
Okay.
it.
Do you have a drawing up with red on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. 15 minutes in and we're on track again.
Hey.
So what we're looking at here is an analysis of the building space by space. I'll turn it over to Lisa here.
Okay. So as Paul said, each individual space in a building has a certain code requirement for whatever the use is. For instance, an area of public assembly has 3 different options you can choose. And since you don't have fixed seats like a theater, it's called unconcentrated, and it allows for 15 square feet per person. So the calculation for the meeting room allows you to have 109 people in there if you were at maximum capacity. So you could take that room and figure out if what the, I don't know, 25% or 50% is.
Okay.
Here's the thing I should say though. The code is not based on any reality whatsoever. Really putting 109 people in there is not at all what you would think. So you might have something posted in that room now.
It's 90. Yeah.
90?
Yeah.
Which sounds more realistic to me. At 109, you'd be nose to nose with just about everybody.
Yes.
But I also wanted to say that some code officials say you're a library. So there's under the occupancy classification, there are 2 library sort of rules to follow. One is if you have a stack area and one is if you have a reading area. So if you take your entire building, call it a library,
And only use those 2 numbers.
Only use that, you come up with a much lower number. So this sheet that we just, did here, this red sheet allows you to have 537 people in your building.
Okay.
But
That's by code.
if you
right.
do this alternate method by using gross square footage for stacks and net square footage for reading spaces, you actually get 459 people in your building. So we always go with the higher number
Mhm.
because that way you figure out all your exits.
Right.
It-
We're being conservative
being
by doing that,
conservative.
so that we're using a higher number, meaning we're being more stringent when it comes to the width of exits, the length of travel, and the number of people in a space. It's not necessarily saying that you would put that many people in there, but we're figuring a worst case scenario.
And then accompanying this drawing is the spreadsheet that's called the code occupancy calculations. And that gives you a list of every single room, what's allowable by code, what the occupants for each room is. And then I have a separate column that's not filled in called number of chairs shown on the drawing, which is the real sort of practical use. And I just haven't filled that in yet because.
But was this sent to him?
Yeah, this was sent to you.
So this also is in that email then with the list.
Yeah.
What we're looking at here, though, just to clarify for everybody, in case you're looking at the numbers and you're confused, is the name of the space and the square footage below it. So that's not the occupancy, that's the square footage that is then used in the formula to calculate the number of people in the occupancy, which is on the spreadsheet Lisa just mentioned.
So the spreadsheet, you can all have a copy of it and you can look at it. You can see how we calculated everything. The big ticket items are any room that has an occupancy over 49 has to have 2 means of egress. So I've highlighted that, and you have 2 means of egress in each of those areas anyway. So you're good.
For reference, Jeff, that's BPL code occupancy.pdf. If
I
you want
see
to pull that up.
Okay, I got it.
And that's a spreadsheet that Lisa was just talking about, and that'll give you those occupancy numbers. Okay.
Awesome.
So,
Okay.
and that also totals up, gets you your net square footage and your gross square footage at the end, just in case you wanted to know.
So as we're doing this, this obviously becomes part of the master plan because it's an analysis of the building. But for the staff, as you guys are looking at the planning and so forth for partial reopening or occupancy, feel free to call us if you need to clarify something or if you want us to run numbers based on changing something around. But this is the existing building and the analysis so that you can use that right off the bat.
So,
Okay.
so what happens in my spreadsheet, it automatically goes to the next spreadsheet is the plumbing fixtures and does the calculations for me. So that's critical for you as well to know that you're required to have 3 male water closets and 5 female, and you have a total of 12 now. So you really only by code need 8 and you have 12, so you're good. The only thing you're short on, and I couldn't verify this in drawings, is if you're over 500 people, you need 2 drinking fountains. And
we do have 2. There's one
you-
down each
corridor?
lawn.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the hallway.
I couldn't tell on the original drawings,
Okay.
so, okay,
Yes.
good.
So plumbing is generally not a very exciting thing to be thinking about, but in terms of the master plan, that's an area we often find ourselves having to say, you have to add a restroom or you have to add a lavatory or whatever it may be. And they think we've been in this building all this time. It doesn't matter, but to meet code compliance. But you're actually in good shape there. And as Lisa said, we have standard spreadsheets in our office that carry that calculation right through. So that one is actually the BPL code plumbing review, which was one of the documents that just got sent as well, Jeff.
Got it.
Okay.
Question on that score.
Yes.
So 459 of the 537 number would be total human occupants of the building, right? Both employees and patrons.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And do we have a sense of what our typical or like real world max capacity is for the building?
Well, we're saying 459 is the realistic one, but the
Right.
code allows 537.
Oh, sure, but even 459 would be every space at a
Yeah.
reasonable approximation of maximum
Yep.
capacity, right? I guess what I'm wondering is, do we ever get 300 people in the building today
Probably
in
not.
the normal course of business?
Well, Jeff should.
Yeah, well, normally when I do this, I have a floor plan that I've done existing conditions, and I've written down where all the chairs are so I can count them up. So that's sort of the practical use. But all your chairs were in a pile when I went through.
Sure.
So I took some best guesses from photographs, and then I thought I'm not going to even put those in the spreadsheet yet. So.
But Jeff, you probably have a sense if you have a door counter or anything else, what the occupancy is
Yeah,
average over the day.
we can get that. I don't want to speculate off the top of my head, but I think that's a number that is knowable. We'll try to back our way into
Yeah.
that.
And obviously trying to define what normal or typical day is up in the air at the moment as well. But
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
So-
that's useful data to have, Jeff.
Go ahead. Okay. But this is good background information, but it's particularly pertinent now given the current scenario.
Well, and I also did the code calculation for your upper mezzanine as well, just so we would know what the net and gross square footage of the entire building is, not just the main floor footprint. So you could add, or actually I did have it, I put it in the spreadsheet. So
It's in those numbers.
it's in those numbers. So you could get 25 people on that upper floor.
Okay.
Theoretically.
So, theoretically.
Okay. So
And the other thing you asked, as long as we're looking at this existing conditions floor plan, is the lineal footage of all the stacks that you currently have. So there's another separate spreadsheet called
BPL linear footage existing.
Yep.
And that gives all of your shelving by unit size and so forth. So
And we do another calculation because people always say, well, how many titles can you fit on a shelf? And there's a range. So I'm showing a range. You could, at 8 per linear foot or 12 per linear foot. So I don't know exactly what your volume is. I could look that up on your annual report,
Yeah.
but I do know now what your lineal footage is. And so
and for
now you have
everyone,
that.
for everyone who's sort of just listening in, the different, you can imagine a James Patterson novel is 2.5 inches to 3 inches thick, whereas a children's picture book is 1/4 of an inch thick. So trying to determine number of titles per lineal foot is a guessing game unless you know the proportions of each of the pieces of collection, which are in your annual report. So we typically go by lineal footage of shelving, broken down by genre, and then make sure that you have enough for what your collection is with expansion. But we can get more detailed if you want to actually break it out and say, okay, now we want to do it at 8 per lineal foot or 4 per lineal foot or 16 per lineal foot.
Okay. Or we can look, the things, if we're comparing sort of like section to like section, if we're comparing the existing conditions to a scheme,
Yep.
we look at the lineal, now we have the lineal foot of what exists, and we can
That's
compare
Jeff. Yes, that's exactly what I meant in that first instance. Is we think of it as lineal footage. So let's compare apples to apples and go, here's the lineal foot in the adult nonfiction. Here's what it is in this scheme. Then we can do an increase without trying to guess at how many titles per lineal foot we're talking
Right.
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that's also one of these, and you can forward those attachments to everybody that we've been talking about. And again, my apologies for not getting these out earlier. We've been working on these right up till now.
Okay.
So the next one then to bring up would be
The new plan.
the BPL floor plans new. You're sharing, right, Jeff?
I can share. Give me a second. Let me see. I don't know if I can
I thought you were.
pick you
am
up.
I the one sharing?
I thought you were.
All right, give me a second. I'll share this one out. I got it. All right, you're looking at a blue drawn, a blue marked up plan.
Got it.
Okay.
Does everybody else have it?
Yep, got it.
can you share it so that we can?
Hey, Jeff,
Yeah.
do you
Stop
mind
sharing.
if we share it? Then we can move the cursor on it. Is that
You
okay?
got it. Let me
Okay.
second. Bloop.
So did you so let me share.
Okay, I'm unshared. You should be able to share. There
Okay.
you go.
Did it come up?
It did.
Okay. So you got a blue floor plan here with some yellow in certain spots and pink in another spot.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
So this scheme started as the no addition scheme. So that's why I've highlighted the two areas in yellow, because you wouldn't have to do either one of them, but there are some concessions to be made. Just in the way that I configured the no addition scheme. And so this starts to be kind of the first iteration of the hybrid, which is why I also sort of put there could be in a future edition over here at the end, because I know there was some consensus that to get the elevator and the stair out of the middle and put them over into an addition would sort of be desirable. But in this scheme, I felt it was important to address the entry, and we left the transformer the way it is. So this would be a minimal impact scheme, where you come in and then you immediately have a door to the library, rather than having to go all the way around the corner and to come all the way down through your existing doors. And then instead of just doing an entrance, I tried to make up some space that I was taking because of creating this route through to the middle of the space. So this route I wanted to make sort of a nice space where it could be the library of things, the music over here, some places to sit, and then start with some new collections over in this area on your way to, these would sort of be staff offices with some glass lights. And then this could be a small meeting room, or this could be the studio. That one of the things I displaced was the studio to make a, since this is the staff break room now, I wanted to create a staff break room and make more of a public space right near the entrance. This could be the studio, this could be the studio, but these are some of the
Small meeting
spaces, tutor spaces that we wanted to add close to the entrance.
For clarity, this is a small addition, and as Lisa said, we could do it without adding these two things, but this at least it's like 1,500 square feet or less than that, gets the entrance closer to the parking lot, which was a common refrain throughout the public commentary, plus giving us a few additional spaces. So the current entrance to the building is right here, and we've moved it a little bit closer to the main lot. And we'd probably still want to think about a covered like a porte-cochere or a trellis or something to protect that entry in the way we've talked about in the past, to make it safer to get from the parking lot to the building. But this was an idea that had minimal so less than 1,500 square feet there and less than 1,000 over here. So really tiny additions. And
so what we did was then, when you come along in here, you do have some glassy views through, so that, I mean, this could still pop out a little bit if you really wanted to have a direct line of sight, but this is where the combined CERT help desk would be, so that you could still see through down to this entrance. You could see over into teens, kids, the children's staff, into nonfiction, and into these areas over here. These stacks now, I'm sort of using the same height that you have, but these could be lower if we wanted to have a little bit better visibility. This scheme adds 15% to your collections.
In addition to the meeting rooms and other spaces.
So, because I know that was going to be one of the questions, but basically we cleaned out some of the areas in the meeting room to make it feel bigger, we opened up the kitchenette, so now it's more available to this space. And we put in a little counter in each one of the meeting rooms, so you could have coffee or you could just lay out space in each one. I'm calling it a kitchen. It's not really going to be a kitchen. It would be a kitchenette, but in some of I changed the entry here so that you could get some better storage in the meeting room, using the studio as solely table and chair storage for this room. This makes a nice staff break room with a kitchenette and 2 restrooms, and they could have a door to the exterior. So this little zone could be staff patio, and it's completely away from the entrance. So you wouldn't have people wandering in like you do now. This could be a reading patio now. It wouldn't need
More public.
It wouldn't need a fence around it.
Okay.
So as you walk down the hallway, I've sort of bumped this out a little bit just to gain a little bit of space for like display. And to there's a lot of extra space in the lobby. So I thought might as well make it a little bit more useful. But this whole wall would be gallery. There could be some windows into the children's. And then once you get down to here, I know it was desirable to have a program space directly connected, but you really need to have this means of egress and to have this entrance off of Delaware Ave. So what we did is we did a series of glass doors across the hall, so there's a visibility and a bunch of glass on the way in. Cleaned out the space and utilized the hallway better so that there's a little cleanup area for crafts. And this is the storage supply room for this room.
Now, again, for this scheme, the remit was to try and keep it as close to the original footprint as possible. You'll recall that schemes we showed last time actually did connect some story time and assembly spaces to the children's room to make them part and parcel of that space. But this it keeps things essentially the way they are now, which is that the story time is across the hall like that. This also adds a family restroom, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
So what I did is I also took over some of the main space, this big space in the middle. So this would be the children's staff desk with some glass, so you could see across to the other staff. There could be some glass here too, but they have a view of everything except for this one little area of middle grade, but that has glass all along here, so anybody walking by could keep an eye on teenagers. And so what we did was we created a little homework zone over here away from the front door, and maybe study tutor room over here. We did a family restroom and 2 smaller study tutor rooms for sort of one-on-one that would have glass on both sides. So we kind of left where the nonfiction where it is. This would be picture books, the low things in the middle, fiction over here into the middle grade area. And we also sort of kept the niches the way they were and the garden the way it is. We did put some computers along the wall so that you have sort of a line of sight, but it's not the first thing that you see when you walk in either. And then we did create a glassed in teen space in the middle with doors on both sides. So somebody from middle grade could come in, or teenagers could just come directly in. So just creating a large open space in the middle. There's book stacks around the outside that are low, maybe a laptop zone here, but just collaboration in the middle.
And the YA collection outside.
And the YA collection is here, here, and here, but there are some collections inside as well. So, and we spread out the computers a little bit. We did a couple here, a couple here, a couple here, but they're in line of sight from the reference desk. These would be low stacks. These would be low stacks here. We're trying to spread out some of the tables right now. And then we also created some more tables over here on this zone. And then we left the server guts of the room here, but we made a collaboration space in that area for the times of the years where kids want to get together for SATs, or you could have some seminars, you could have staff use this meeting room. It's convenient to some of the offices.
Yeah, I was going to say the staff could use it as a meeting room, but it could also be a staging area or a workroom if you're putting together flyers or projects or things like that. You need table space. You simply don't reserve it for outside use for a period of time while you're setting up a project or something like that. So it's a very flexible space, and it's close to not just the offices, but the maker space at that end of the building as well.
We also, I made a glass wall here into nonfiction, just so that this doesn't feel so closed off the way it is. And that way you can see when you're looking for something, there's something else going on over in the corner.
And on the, oh, I'm sorry.
And then I just wanted to say that this scheme, I think, would still utilize the upper floor for only staff. We would, the guts of the IT server would be here, but this is where their storage space for computers and electronics, and then there's the IT office behind the Zoom faces, so I can't get to it. Okay. So this is the IT office, and then you could come right up. I know that there's a lot of people for like the outreach keep things up with IT so they could go over and down the elevator and then, you know, make your way out to the garage. So I was trying to think of having a door for them, a door for sort of the bullpen, and then a door for some of these offices. And this is just a variety of different size offices for different uses. And then these are more cubicles like downstairs in here. But we do need to make a division for two means of egress for up here. So everybody goes through this door to come down that existing stair, and this door to come down that existing stair.
It was primarily for supervision reasons that we established, I think, and everyone, the consensus was in the last meeting, if we can keep staff upstairs without the public going upstairs, that's one less level for you to have to supervise in terms of what's happening as patrons are using the space. The other thing I wanted to mention, this allows for future extension and the additions that we talked about in the other schemes. Remember, this is the minimal scheme. When we do that, it's likely that these pieces, these components would move out into the addition and open up more space in the center of the building. But again, since we were asked to look at minimal changes to the footprint, think of this as the minimal scheme, and then there will be the hybrid schemes of what we looked at before that are more invasive but do more things. Anything else to say on this?
The only thing other thing that we sort of skipped over is down here, we consolidated and enlarged greatly. This zone right here was where the DVDs were. So we created a much larger, better flow for back of house. And so the DVDs went, where did I put them? Oh, right here, media. They went over here. So it goes from the YA collection right into DVDs. By continuing the wall on here, we've added more shelving along here, and we figured we'd keep the games and the other things close at hand. They need a little bit more supervision. So that's what's happening right there.
To answer the question before it's asked, we're often being asked, what to do about the current scenario for distancing and particularly staff safety and work areas, as well as public safety. One of the things, well, there are two primary areas that we're looking at. One is improvements to the HVAC and mechanical systems for filtration and air exchanges. Libraries already have a large requirement for fresh air intake compared to, say, office buildings or even schools. So that's one component, but the other is the landscape furniture in work areas like this. So what we're picturing is not just a divider that goes up a certain height, but then has an acrylic or glass piece above it as well that allows the light through, but isn't allowing direct contact, with the face across workspaces if you're looking towards somebody. The other thing that we're trying to do in as many spaces as possible is make sure that as it lays out for a workspace, the chairs aren't all facing each other. In other words, instead of somebody being across from you face to face, we're offsetting them or facing them at different angles. But that's something that will develop as we go along. And frankly, that's something we were doing before this, just from a comfort level of not wanting to see, like a puppet show, there's a face right in front of you every time you look up. So some of those components make sense. The other thing you've heard me talk about as it pertains to public space is that need for ownership of space and these niches and these areas. Well, they're sort of in a way set up for separation, then finding these individual little areas and not committing large meeting rooms to just a few people. And so this allows us to do that while giving us multiple meeting rooms for picking the correct size room for the correct size meeting. You don't have one large meeting room now. There's a whole series of options here that allow you some flexibility to maintain whatever the distancing standard is at a given time. But it can, as that changes too, you can change the number of people that are allowed to occupy any of those rooms. Okay.
Excellent.
So this was the minimal scheme.
Yep, that's it.
Did we look at the hybrid scheme?
No.
Okay. So this is what I was talking about earlier. I apologize. We didn't get a chance to take all those notes and finish a hybrid scheme. It's still on trace at the moment. But that's something we'll have for next time, as well as the other component that was a missing piece for this evening was the Borthwick house and what the strategies for that might be, just to line them up and say which ones work and which ones don't. We've talked in general about the value of that property primarily, but we also said we wanted to look objectively at what the building itself could be used for if it had a useful component. Okay.
The other thing that I did though is I could quickly do the linear takeoff of collections for this scheme. And I did send that separately. That's the one that you got just by itself.
Got it.
And it did overall, it gained 15% to the collection space.
In this scheme.
In this scheme. I haven't looked at each individual area. So it might be more for one. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, teens was 300. Now it's 576. So there are.
So bottom line then, as you look at the numbers to think about, is what we've done in this particular scheme, even though it's the minimal intervention scheme, we got more meeting spaces of varying size, tried to improve the flow, although we're going to keep looking at that, and added about 15% to the collection size as well. So it accomplished all those with just those two small additions that we're talking about in those areas, and making better use of the upstairs, the mezzanine. So as we look at the hybrid, I would expect those numbers to be higher, the increase not only in meeting space, but the increase in collection space. And then it's really for the committee to start thinking about what kind of commitment there is to investment financially compared to the advancement of which of these priorities make sense. So this might be enough for your community. This might be something you say, this does what we want it to do. It leaves the flexibility for the future expansion. When we get to that, let's start with this. Or you may say, if we're going to do a single fundraising or a single referendum, we want to look at the big picture and shoot for, you know, that piece, and then deal with other things in the future that are smaller. So we'll talk about priorities and phasing as well next time we meet. Okay.
Just on that subject, how much time do you guys think you need to work on the hybrid design and any other larger design? Because we'll schedule a follow-up, you know, whenever you think you'll have something.
Our thought was the week of the 27th. The week of the 27th is pretty open for us. If it was the second half of the week, that gives us a little more time. Lisa and I are out the first week of August, and we also have a fair amount of time the week of August 10th. So the week of July 27th or the week of August 10th both work, depending. I know it's tough to get committee members all the time. It's hard to get schedules reconciled.
Okay, yeah, let's shoot for that, the week of the 27th, right?
Okay.
If later half the week works. And Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, just a quick survey for the board committee members to synchronize schedules.
We'll do.
If Thursday afternoon the 30th worked, anytime after 3 o'clock would be good for that. And we're also free all day Friday the 31st.
Just making a note.
Okay. Are you going to do like a doodle poll or something like that?
You got it.
Okay.
All right. So you're saying Thursday afternoon after 3 and then all day Friday.
And then anytime Friday the 31st, right? After that, we would have to go to the week of August 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
We also, we did look up the zoning requirements, and it is a 50-foot setback for the front, which is basically the edge of what, well, it's on a diagonal. It's on the edge of the
bump outs.
the 2 bump outs. So what I originally showed, sort of that schematic of the site plan is correct. I chose that imaginary line and said we would have to double check it, and so that is correct.
That's right. So those bump outs extend as far as they could already.
Yes.
That's right. We chose it for architectural reasons, but it turns out that's the limitation. Now, you could get a variance and go beyond that potentially, but you have to prove the hardship for a variance, obviously.
Yeah.
And then,
Did you guys look at the zoning on Borthwick at all?
yes.
Okay.
So we would have to see if that since it would be a frontage, we would have to come back 50 feet. The house isn't back 50 feet.
Right.
The Borthwick house that exists now.
So it depends on, a couple of options that we've shown for what to do with that site. But
Okay.
Having said that, I don't think our additions go out and encroach on that. The ones that we showed in the previous scheme, Mark, as we address them, we'll check that. But I don't think we got within 50 feet of Borthwick anyway. We were leaving a fair amount back.
In one of the schemes, we were sort of utilizing the parking of your van. So that was right out at the street. So I don't think it was 50 feet.
No. All right.
Okay.
So we'll look at it, Mark, though. It's a good question. And it's one of the complications because you have a corner lot, you technically have two front yards. So
Right. Yeah.
But the good news is your side setbacks are only 8 feet. So.
But you're right about at that now.
You're right at that now.
They essentially built out
Yeah.
about where it would go.
Yeah.
So the other thing we'll do is, Harmeet, we'll go through that checklist as well that you sent us some bullet points from a conversation with the committee. So in preparation for that next meeting, we'll also go through and make sure that we've talked about or addressed each of those pieces so that we've got a comprehensive answer for everything that we've talked about.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So it's about 50 minutes. We started a little late, but we're happy to answer any questions or again, apologies for not getting it to you ahead of time. We will do our best next time to do that, but anything that you want to talk about now or ask about based on what we were looking at?
One quick one from me, and then certainly encourage everybody else to chime in as well. The existing lobby in this scheme, is that still being kept as hallway space or is it being repurposed for something else?
I'm calling it, if you look at the code calculation, they have a space called, the code has a space called Exhibit Gallery Museum. So that's sort of what I'm calling it, which allows you to have occupants in that lobby. So I know that there was a question with your local code official about having
whether you have to count it as an exit corridor.
So yeah, I think it wants to be a usable space, although we did get rid of some of the the spaces, these were much larger spaces. So we're sort of utilizing some of that space for the function of the rooms rather than having it just be a big, large, sort of extra second lobby out of
Right.
those rooms.
I think this is an area we want to look at, Harmeet, because we have two parallel paths of travel.
Yeah,
And-
that's exactly what I was trying to work through. And one made sense, and the other one looks like it would be sort of wasted if we didn't do something else with it.
Well, we don't want it to be redundant, but we do want to maintain access to the meeting room after hours with still having two
Yeah.
means of egress. So that's where it becomes problem. Like if we just blow this wall out and make all of this space, somewhere we have to create a transition from a public space to a behind locked doors space to allow after hours usage. But as I say, that's sort of what we'll be looking at as we go here, as we go forward. As you said, to make most efficient use of spaces. We're not creating corridors, but actual, as
Yeah,
Lisa was saying,
spaces,
museum
yeah.
spaces or display spaces. You've heard me talk also about libraries being an opportunity to talk about the community and the history and the context. That's a great place as you enter the building to get a feel for what Bethlehem and Delmar are as you're coming into the building.
And one thing that we haven't really shown yet, but every time I draw it, I think about it, is we do these niches in a lot of our libraries so that you can get off the beaten path and not feel like somebody's walking behind you. It's almost like by doing this scheme here, we can almost do some niches that could encroach upon that, but be part of the library space. So it's more like a main street.
Yeah.
So it's
Like bay windows
yeah,
out
bay
onto
windows.
a street.
So that's why I was thinking too, you could do it along the kids. That would be great to have little spaces
window seats.
for kids or a little play
Yeah.
structure or something for inside. But so there's a lot that could happen there to take over some of that space, still leave it a corridor, but make it a lot more vibrant.
Okay. So Jeff, if you want to forward these materials to the committee,
They
Then-
got them.
then the same thing as we've said before, if you have questions, you don't have to write a whole narrative, put some bullet points down, forward them to Jeff and he'll get them to us. And we'll try to make sure we're addressing them at the next meeting as well. But looks like we're going to try and pick a date for that week, and we should be on the calendar for that.
Great.
Okay. Anything else this evening?
Good.
Well, thank you
Okay.
all very much for your time.
Sure.
Charmaine, welcome aboard the committee. And yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning, but we got there in the end.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, I'm not necessarily on the committee. It was an opportunity for me to sit in and try to get some additional information, but I think committees will be done next
Okay.
month. But thank you for.
Just wanted you to feel welcome. That's
Thank you.
But no, it's been a great committee. You folks have been very invested in this, and we appreciate that. So thank you for your time this evening as well. But yeah, if you have things in the next few days, please get them to Jeff and to us, and then we'll keep working on things toward that meeting at the end of the month.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you all.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Figure out if we
Bye-bye.
can exit out now. Have a
Bye-bye.
great evening.
Bye.
All right, I'm gonna stop the live stream.